The Observer's Calendar for February 2025 on episode 468 of the Actual Astronomy Podcast. I'm Chris, and joining me is Shane. We are amateur astronomers who love looking up the night sky, and this podcast is for everybody who enjoys going out under the stars. So, Shane, did you get out under the stars this week?
No, I did not. I don't think the forecast matched what actually happened here very well because I think
No.
we were talking about last time you and I talked, we thought we might have some opportunities to observe, but it got really cold, and then when the cold disappeared, the cloud came in, so really no opportunity.
Yeah, even yesterday it looked like we might eke out a night, but there was a couple things that prevented that, which were well, the cloud deck moved off. It was a big cloud deck, totally moved off, or about 90% of it. So it was like a beautiful, nice sunny day, -6. So for here,
Mhm.
that's beautiful, really. And then sadly, it as soon as the sun was setting, it just shooshed back in, covered over the whole sky and then the wind kicked up a fair bit. So that
Mhm.
was that for that. So I think there might have been an hour somewhere in the middle of the night. Like if you had stayed up just looking at the sky, you might have been able to get 30 minutes in and 30 minutes there at a couple points. But I wasn't. It feels pretty marginal at that point, and it got colder than forecast. We were approaching -14 here. Forecast was for about -9. And I just didn't bring out sort of that sort of mid negative teen weather. I could go for 15 or 20 minutes, but I just didn't have like that extra layer that you need when you're getting into sort of -15, -16, and -20 with the wind chill is pretty cold.
Mhm. For sure.
Yeah. So made this up. I'm just using these calendar notes now because we spent a lot more time on the calendar this past year, sort of getting things settled for what people can look at in the night sky. I think I did find an error, at least for February, which is that in our RASC Observer's calendar, which I edit, I think we left some of the things in for EST or sorry, GMT for Greenwich Mean Time instead of EST. So there may be a couple things in there that are slightly out of sequence. And where that matters is depending on where the moon or the planets are in relation to the moon. If it's in Greenwich time, which is 6 hours difference from here, or 5 hours difference from Eastern time right now, then that can put the moon close to a planet or a cluster or something on kind of sort of the following day or after midnight or something to that effect. So there can be some variances, sort of 50-50. Sometimes it matters, sometimes it doesn't matter. So it's a tough one to check because when you're building the calendar, if you check a few for the month and it looks good, and then you don't get back to that month to check every event, which I thought we did, then some of those can be off, even though you did check every month, right? Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
One of those things. Got nice opportunities to see the planets right now still. I think everybody's been out. I certainly have had a few questions about seeing all the planets. Have you had this question?
No, like just in emails. Well, I seen a couple of emails come in, I think, talking about that, but that would be about it.
Yeah, just that most of the planets, I think all the planets are more or less visible right now. And then in February, it's going to be even more so because we've got Mercury coming up into the southwest in the evening sky, whereas during its most recent elongation, it was, sorry, it's going to be in the evening sky, and during its recent elongation, it was in the morning sky. Um, and it's difficult to see Mercury, Shane, I think is what it boils down to. So I think if people are listening to this podcast, they might stand a decent shot, but for the average public, it can be a bit of a challenge, eh?
Yeah, it doesn't get very high in the sky, and it's often lost in, some sun glow or twilight, and can be challenging for sure.
The advantage in February for seeing this versus earlier in the year or late last year in December 2024, this is kind of when this setup began. Um, is that, well, Saturn gets quite a bit lower. In fact, won't be able to see it from inside the observatory. You'd have to sort of step out, but it's fine. Um, then what we can see is Mercury approach Saturn, I think, towards the end of the month. And so it's going to help with that pairing. So if people can get familiar with where Saturn is, which is a fairly easy planet to identify, then as we get towards the end of the month, you'll see Mercury pop up from the horizon and join Saturn. So that will actually help people to find Mercury.
Yeah, yeah, it's always nice to have sort of an anchor point, of a brighter object, whether it's another planet or the moon or maybe even a bright star. That's usually easier to find. And then if you search the field for, in this case, Mercury, it's just much easier.
And Venus is going to be in the southwest all month, and Mars remains nice and high, just less than a couple of weeks now since it was at opposition. I mean, as we record this, it's only a dozen days since opposition here, hardly. So it's still a good opportunity to take a look at Mars. I'm certainly hoping to get that opportunity, Shane. Sadly, we have not had that opportunity, eh?
Yeah, yeah, it's been a rough winter for astronomy purposes. But yeah, hopefully we can turn that around and get some good views before it really gets to be too small. But it is neat to see it in the sky, even naked
Yeah,
eye. It has that amber hue that is just unmistakable.
yeah.
And yeah, I'm hoping to get some nice views of it soon.
Yeah, I've been looking at it unaided eye just through the window. The
Yeah.
only clear sky that we've been having is when it's been below -25 and below -30, past 30 with the wind. So like even going out, like keeping your eye open at those temperatures, like it's just going to be tearing up and blurring so bad. I did that one last opposition, and yeah, it wasn't any good. So yeah, so we're crossing our fingers for some hopefully clearer skies now that it is finally warming up.
Mhm.
Saturn's going to be pretty low in the southwest, but Jupiter is really high in the evening sky, very, very high in the south, and it's going to be transiting the meridian at about 8 p.m. So that gives us a beautiful opportunity to see Jupiter as it's nice and high anyway.
Mhm.
February 1st, Venus, Moon, Neptune, and Saturn are congregating in the southwest, and the moon will actually occult Neptune at about 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on February 1st. So I even put a little diagram in here, Shane. You can see my 5 degree circle, and well within the 5 degree field of your binoculars, or if you have a really wide field, little like 60 or 80 millimeter telescope or something, you can get that Neptune, Moon, Venus triangle pattern inside the optic. So I got my binoculars ready to go for that one for sure.
Yeah, that's neat. Yeah, that'll look great through binoculars.
And then Saturn is just hanging out down below. Also on that night, the asteroid 28 Bellona. I guess you can make your Bellona sandwich that night. And Bellona is going to be at opposition on February 1st and magnitude 9.8. So just barely making the cutoff.
Yeah, not super bright, but if you have a telescope, take a run at it.
Yeah, 28 Bellona is a main belt asteroid, very
Mm.
large, discovered by astronomer Luther on March 1st, 1854, and named, and it has like a accentual notation above the O, so I'm probably saying it wrong, but it's named after the Roman goddess of war, and was chosen to mark the beginning of the Crimean War. Its historical symbol was Bellona's whip and spear, and it is the pipeline for Unicode 17.0 as U plus 1 CECE. So there you go.
Mm.
Bellona is a stony type asteroid, and it's about 100 to 120 kilometers across, goes around the sun just over every 4.5 years.
Well, never heard of it, but here's our chance to see it.
There you go. There you go. You can like so you have the digital setting circles. I'm sorry, what's the brand name again that everybody's
Nexus.
Nexus, and that's like pretty much the name and getting digital setting circles, I think now.
Yeah, I'm not even sure if there's an alternative. There used to be one. I can't remember its name now, but I think they went out of business. Yeah, I believe Nexus is the primary. There's
Mm,
some, yeah, like I know Orion used to have them on some of their Dobbs, and I think Skywatcher does too.
mm.
But anyway, yeah, that's probably the one to buy if you're looking.
Are you able to get the asteroids in there?
I believe so, yeah, as
Awesome.
far as I know.
Cool. Yeah, I'd be interested to know if someone's able to do that. That'd be cool. The other thing we got on February 3rd is the globular cluster NGC 1851 culminating at the meridian. It's sort of like some of these objects, deep sky objects like globular clusters, open clusters, etc., nebula, are I'm going to give them for when they're well placed based on a list that Maria Noonan and somewhat me, but mostly her, have created for the observer's calendar. NGC 1851, it's a bit too far um, south for our plus 50 degrees northerly latitude. So it would, if you got real lucky there, Shane, you might be able to see it between a couple trees, like on the opposite hillside to me. But I think that'd be a pretty big stretch. You'd want to get further south. I have seen it from more southerly locations. I think I've seen it from Nova Scotia because from here it's less than a degree up, but from Nova Scotia it's just over 5 degrees up, which places it within the zone of visibility. And then from even further south, I've seen it nicely placed 20 or 30 degrees above the horizon. So that's a nice one for people to track down if they're able to get somewhere a little bit further south this winter than we are anyway.
Hmm.
February 4th is probably about your best night to see the open cluster, which does culminate here, which is Messier 41. This is one of the Charles Messier objects, and it's just basically about 5 degrees below or just to the south of Sirius, the brightest star in the nighttime sky. And beautiful cluster. I can see it with my unaided eye from here.
Out at the cabin there.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I mean, it's pretty bright. I think even from the conservation area in the city before they put the highway into our south, I could get it just from the local park even. It's very bright.
Yeah, yeah. You notice that there's a different hue to the sky, kind of in that area,
Mm.
and it's quite large too, right? Like it
Yeah.
occupies a pretty big area of the sky. So if you're looking for sort of a point of light, you might almost overlook it in a way.
Yeah. And certainly from the city, it's well visible. Like you were saying, it's pretty big. It's about 38 arc minutes, I think, according to the notes here.
Hmm.
All right. February 5th, we have our first quarter moon. And this is, I think, our first opportunity to well see the lunar X near the crater Werner on February 5th. I think that's our first shot this year to see it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So what is the lunar X again? It's one of these clair obscur type events.
Yeah. So just a shadow play, essentially, like the moon as it makes its way around Earth and, kind of our position in the solar system. It catches light on some of the ridges and casts shadows at different times and creates these clear obscure effects. And this one just looks like an X, pretty visible, pretty bright. And every night that there's a lunar X, there's a lunar V, and you just look along the terminator, which is, sort of where it goes from darkness to light,
Hmm.
and you'll be able to see a couple neat features that night.
Hmm. Awesome. Also on the moon, this is one of Marie's. We have the Magnus Ray visible on February 5th, so people can look that up and hunt it down. On this night too, we have the moon very close to the Pleiades. So don't mistake the calendar because the calendar says the 6th. And I think that's just because the closest point, I think, is sort of over the midnight. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
But in general, I don't. I don't like putting that in these notes because typically people are going to be going out in the evening sky. And I doubt anybody's going to get up in the middle of the night just to catch the moon, half a degree closer to the Pleiades than it would be at 10 p.m. or something when they might otherwise be out.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Lunar Street Wall is visible on the 6th, though. That's
Okay.
that's an actual feature, though. It's not one of these clear obscures. It's like an escarpment type feature, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, but it becomes far more visible when the shadow is being cast. It really like stands out against sort of the pale background.
And also on this night, the moon and Jupiter kind of pair up. They're really just over 6 degrees apart, so you need a really wide field instrument. But to your eye, though, the advantage there is that you'll see the moon and Jupiter. Like the moon will not be so bright to make Jupiter less visible. So
Hmm.
won't get caught up in like the glare of the moon or anything. So I'm just playing with the notes. All right. February 9th, Mars and the moon are going to be quite well placed together. Now, I see them as about uh, around close to 4 degrees apart. However, I think in some areas they can get as close as about a degree. Seems like the deal. However, the moon and Mars, I think what we're seeing here is that earlier in the day and during the daylight hours, the moon will occult Mars, meaning that the moon will pass in front of Mars at about 3 p.m. Eastern time, be about 2 p.m. here. So these sort of things are visible. I've seen these sort of events before, which are kind of cool if you do get the afternoon. It seems like they happen mostly in the wintertime for one reason or another. But anyway, you can go out and try to, you're able to see the moon during the day, and if you kind of know where to look, it's good practice to kind of see if you can start picking out the moon in the daytime sky. And then you want to place, I usually would do this in a city and then place like a skyscraper between me and the sun so that I'm in the shadow. That's usually the trick, and then you can you can actually watch this very safely without getting anywhere near the sun, because the moon here is, I think, just before full. And because of that, yeah, because the moon is full on the 12th, so there's just a few days before full. So the sun is going to be reasonably far away from this in the sky. So anyhow, could be worth trying to check out if you're careful about the sun.
Hmm.
Have you seen many of the daytime occultations before?
I've never observed one myself. No.
Yeah, I've seen Jupiter and Saturn, and I feel like, but that's probably it. During the day, I have not seen a Mars one. So we'll see. Might do the math on that one and see if I can figure out a way to see it. All right, February 11th, we have NGC 3132, which is the 8 burst nebula. But here it's about a quarter of a degree below the horizon. So that one is definitely for our friends further south, like in Ontario or down in the States or whatever. But that is, these are like grazing objects, like objects where you gotta go to a field somewhere and usher the cow away to the south, and then you might get it just as it culminates. You need to run that in your software. But if far enough south, like if you're down in Arizona or somewhere, it's going to be
Hmm.
reasonably high, maybe 15 degrees up. So that would be worth a shot.
Yeah, definitely for more advantageous for southern hemisphere. Well, not southern hemisphere, but just southern latitudes.
Yeah. Sometimes people here get away too, so I thought I'd stick these in. And then people are always asking us about this stuff too, hey? Like, that's not the most frequent question we get, but usually half a dozen times a year, it seems like we get a note from an observer saying, hey, what can I see when I go down south? And so this would be at this time of year in February, one of those objects that you'd probably want to hunt down.
Hmm.
February 12th is the full moon. Nothing to see here, but if somebody was so inclined and they happened to have good clear skies and we're looking for something to look at, they could look at the asteroid Amphitrite, which is at opposition in magnitude 9. 29 Amphitrite is one of the largest S-type or stony-type asteroids, and it's about 200 miles or 200 kilometers in diameter, and probably the fifth largest asteroid after Eunomia, Juno, Iris, and Herculina. Amphitrite was discovered by Albert Marth on 1 March 1854 at the private South Villa Observatory in Regent's Park, London. It was Marth's only asteroid discovery, and its name was chosen by George Bishop, the owner of the observatory, who named it after the sea goddess in Greek mythology.
Very cool.
February, yeah, neat, eh? February 14th, Venus is at greatest illumination extent. So that means that Venus, from here to there, is going to be getting brighter and brighter. And hey, you know what's interesting about that, Shane?
Tell me.
Well, you know what February 14th is?
Well, I've heard it's Valentine's Day.
There you go. And because isn't like Venus like one of these, goddesses of love kind of thing or something? There you go. It's going to be at its greatest illumination on that evening. So people can take their loved one out and go take a blinding peek at it through your telescope.
There you go. Yes.
February 15th, Endymion sunset ray is visible on the moon. I got to get Marie to come on and help pronounce all these ones. But that's one of the rays. So my understanding is what happens is there's an asteroidal impact on the moon from way back when that kicks up all the stuff, and then that lands down in this sort of ray type pattern around the crater, and then those are somewhat easy to see from time to time. Like we all think of the moon and we think of these crater impacts, but actually seeing those rays can be a bigger challenge than what you might think, eh?
Yeah, it can be a little bit challenging for sure. Patience and, just patience sometimes is all you need.
Carbon Stars ZPVC, which is, I think it's supposed to be Pisceum. I think it's supposed to be PSC. I think that PVC is the type of pipe or something we have here. I was thinking about that. And S. Cepheus are at their best tonight. So Carbon Stars Z, Pisceum, Pisces, and then S. Cepheus are at their best tonight. So these carbon stars, they're red type stars and a variable type star of sorts. And what Maria has done is she's calculated the nights where they're going to be most easily placed in the sky and at a favorable pulsation to see that redness. Super handy, because I've certainly tracked down some of the carbon stars before, but I don't usually bother doing all the calculation to figure out when they're going to be at their best. So she's kind of done that for us here. So I hope to knock a few of these off over the coming year.
Yeah. Carbon stars I always enjoy looking at them just to see that color and kind of how they vary in intensity and sometimes like their position to other colorful stars is also part of the fun.
I've been working on this H.D. Curtis Planetary Nebula project, and as I've been doing that, it's surprising how, and coincidental, of course, how many of the carbon stars land within like a few degrees or so of the planetary nebula, and they pop out on my star chart. So I've been kind of plotting them along too, because some of them are close enough, like within a couple degrees, and my telescope has a 2.5 degree field of view. So I'm hoping in some of these instances to get a sketch off with the planetary as well as the carbon star in the field of view.
Mm-hmm. That's cool.
February 20th is the last quarter moon, and this is also when the zodiacal light becomes visible in the western sky after sunset. And hopefully we are definitely getting into some warmer temperatures by then. But I think the story with the zodiacal light, I mean, they used to say, years back that it was interplanetary dust, which it kind of sort of is. But initially, I think the thought was that it was leftover remnants from the solar system. But my understanding is now that it's material that's come off Mars, and it has to do at least somewhat with our proximity to Mars, and that Mars has given this material off into space, and then it's sort of getting flattened around in an orbit around the sun, and that's where this interplanetary dust is coming from.
Yeah. We had Dave Chapman on
Mm,
the show many months ago now, just to sort of set the record straight on the zodiacal light. And
yeah,
that was a really good episode. And I was not aware of that until Dave mentioned it.
yeah, yeah. It's sort of fun fact. February 21st, Antares is going to be about half degrees north of the moon, and this is when the Curtis Lunar X is going to be visible, but just for Western North America, apparently, is what I put in the calendar. So this is another one of those clear obscure effects people can look into. February 24th, this one is worth seeing. Is the Mare Orientale is visible on the moon. This is a an impact basin, and it's just on the lunar limb. Have you ever seen this, Shane?
I'm just, as you're talking, I'm trying to think if I have. Think I've, I think I've observed that, but my lunar notes go back quite a ways. I'd have to go reference that to see if I actually have or not.
Yeah, this one is kind of a wow feature on the moon, in my opinion. Well, this will be well worth seeing. And this is what Maria and I were talking about, is that typically we've just had a few of these clear obscure effects and a few other things in the calendar, but something like Mare Orientale is well visible. And I had observed it one night after going to an astronomy club meeting, and somebody was talking about the fact that it was visible either that night or the next night or something, and then it was clear, and I went out and looked at it, and it's quite an impressive thing. It sits on the sort of on the edge of the moon, where the moon is sort of being illuminated, but can't quite fully see around the edge. And what happens is the moon and Earth have this dynamic where we can kind of be a little bit afore or behind in our orbit, and so can the moon, such that we can kind of sort of see around the corner a little bit. And this is one of those features that's just around the corner. But you can see it quite well, so it's well worth it.
Hmm.
Well worth it. So people should try to take a look at that. I'll definitely be trying for that one. It might be visible in binoculars too. 12 by 36s. Give it a shot. And then I think this is supposed to be Carbon Star X AUG, I think is what it's supposed to be. But let me just check here, see if I still have. Yeah, let's go. 24th is going to be Carbon Star X SGE, which is Sagittarius. So you can see this in the morning sky, which is this Carbon Star X SGE. Sagittarius is at its best. Okay, and then NGC 2477 culminates best on or about February 24th. Have you seen this one, Shane?
Um, Again, I'd have to check my notes. I'm not great at remembering all of the NGC numbers and whether or not I have a check mark beside them, so I'd have to look.
This one is pretty low from here, just barely gets above the horizon. I might go and say this instead, because as I go through this, I might add some notes. Yeah, that does culminate. It might culminate high enough to see, but out of a few things right here, there's two things in this zone of the sky to see. Now this is down in Puppis, but there are a few things that are visible from here. Okay, let me just go back. I'm going to ad hoc here, ad lib for a second. Okay, there's a few things. So one is Colander 135, which probably most people haven't heard of before. But this is a second magnitude cluster. And it culminates here about 4 degrees high, but it's second magnitude. And in fact, there's a bright star, which I'm going to get wrong, a Hadi, and it's 2.7 magnitude. And then there's a couple really bright stars around it, and this is well visible from here. I've seen this. So even from 50 degrees north latitude, you can see this Colander 135. That's worth seeing. The other thing I'm going to say to look at, and this is getting pretty low, only about 3 degrees up, but again, pretty bright. There's a set of fifth magnitude stars. They culminate here at about 10 p.m. You can try for those, but going a little bit further along is NGC 2451, which I have seen from here. And that's well we're seeing. I actually believe that NGC 2451, if I'm recalling correctly, I don't think it's actually a cluster. I think it's a bit of a cluster masquerader. And then a little bit further along, we have NGC 2546. And that's a very rich region of sky, just sort of cuts above the horizon at about 10:30 or 11 o'clock here. So nice, rich region of the Milky Way, which we don't often think about. But if you do kind of explore around, there's some interesting stuff there, Shane, that culminates at least as high as Messier 7 does from here. So if you do get the night, it can be worthwhile exploring. So, and I'm looking at the end of February, and it's well dark at 10:30. So this stuff will be well placed in the evening sky in the month of March as well. Yeah, it can be worth hunting down.
Yeah, yeah,
All right.
that's good to know.
All right, February 25th, Mercury. Now, this is what I was referring to at the start here. Mercury is going to be about 2 degrees away from Saturn. It's actually going to be north of Saturn, but over a few nights around, like sort of the 23rd, 24th, 25th, blah blah blah, towards the end of the month, Mercury is going to come up and pair with Saturn. So what people would want to do is watch Saturn cutting across the sky, and you're going to see the sky getting brighter and brighter in subsequent nights, hopefully. And then you're going to see Saturn kind of heading towards that brightness. So you kind of have to get used to picking it out in the twilight. And then towards the end of the month, Mercury is going to pop up above the horizon and come racing towards Saturn. So if you get used to Saturn and seeing its brightness, then when Mercury comes on the scene, see what's going to happen is it's going to masquerade as Saturn. So if you're not paying close attention, you're just going to think that Mercury is Saturn, but it's not. It's a whole different planet, of course. And you'll be able to see this in your binoculars. You sort of have to kind of follow that one along there.
Hmm.
February 28th, we have a young crescent moon visible just after sunset. I don't know the age, didn't put the age down, but that is one of those ones that I think that's 24 hours or less. So it could be a good opportunity to see that. And then also on the 28th, Mercury is going to be north of the moon, so just above the moon, and Saturn and Venus are going to be in a line that night. So I think that'll be an interesting thing to take in if it's visible. And also, really here on the last day of the year, we're going to have, or last day of the month, we're going to have the Gegenschein visible from a dark site, and that's the, I think, like the anti-solar point. So basically, it's an illuminated spot of this. I think it's also this interplanetary dust, and it just happens to be with the sun behind us, and at the angle the sun is at in relation to the Earth. Then we're going to see this point. It's going to be very high in the south. It's not. I used to say it's directly overhead, but it's not. It's just very high in the south, really.
Yeah, and both this and oh crap, this is Dialco Light. I couldn't think of it off the top of my
Yeah.
head. Both of these almost appear as like soft light pollution. Like if you were just looking at the sky and trying to, give an analogy or comparison to what you're looking for, it really, to me anyway, looks like a light dome from a distant city. It's higher up in the sky and not connected to the horizon.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Just looking up to see if we have any comets that are coming. I wasn't able to get out to see that early morning comet. Not sure if you've been able to catch that one.
I have not, no, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm just looking at Greg Krinklaw's site. He hasn't had an update here in a little while, or for some reason I'm getting the October comets. But yeah, he was putting up a comet chasing thing here for a while. So let me just go to Yoshida's, see what he's got going on. Unless you know of
I don't offhand.
bright comets. All right, yeah, let's just see what we got coming up. So yeah, this is that G3 Atlas. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't really been able to take a look at that. And then the other ones I'm seeing are all like magnitude 12 or fainter, with the exception of A3 Shushan Atlas, which is now it's going to be at like fainter than magnitude 11.5. So typically we're we're kind of reporting on, if you can call it that, anything that's kind of sort of 10th magnitude or brighter. If it's about 10th magnitude and it's brightening, we might throw it in. But if it's 10th magnitude and fainter or getting fainter, then we're not putting it in. But it's saying that this G3 atlas is still going to be relatively bright, even by February 1st. But I wonder where it is. You don't happen to know offhand.
No, I don't.
See if I can find it here really quick. No, I can't find it. Where's the actual official designation? So it's just trying to find one that I can just grab really quick. C 2024 G3 Atlas is the name of it. And here we go. Where is it now? Ooh, it's very low in the west. So let me just pop back here and see what we got. See if it is visible. No, it's right by the sun. It might be in the morning sky. Flip around to the morning sky. No, it's not visible, sadly. So this one is still really close to the sun. I think for a little while there, it kind of popped up above the horizon for a few days around the 13th or something. But at least towards the end of the month, it doesn't seem all that visible, sadly. Just trying to see if I can make it visible. You'll only want if I can make a comet visible. So no, you have to get back into like sort of mid-January before it's visible, which sadly has now passed. There we go. Any double stars or anything you have on your agenda for the month, Shane?
Nothing. There's a couple in Lepus that I want to get. I think they're the only two that are on the RASC double star observing list. And I think those are the only two left that I have for winter double stars on that list. So I am hoping for some good conditions because it's pretty well positioned for us now. Like I don't have to stay up very late to see Lepus. So that's what I'm hoping to find.
Cool. All right, I'm just hoping for some clear skies. I got lots of plans here, just no skies to execute them on. I mean, even right now, if it was nighttime, I mean, you could even poke around and there's some high thin cirrus, but you'd be getting 5th magnitude naked eye here anyway, which isn't too bad. You could be looking at some open clusters and such, but wow, like these past days, we get into this sometimes where the days can be good or even excellent. Like yesterday was awesome, beautiful day, but no luck, eh?
Yeah, exactly. And today, I think sort of similar, where it's clear during the day, and then I think the cloud will start moving in around 3-ish and ruin our evening for observing.
Yeah, not even as good as what the clear sky clock forecast, which is not good. Like it's what do you say this is? This is the if anybody's familiar with it, the best we're getting is like that below average kind of green conditions is just what we're seeing when it is clear. And then the best parts of it is always during like the middle of the day. And then the worst parts seem to be during the evening time. But yeah, there's nothing here forecast in the next few days, sadly.
It's too bad.
Yep. Okay. Well, with that, I'll just scroll down to our closing remarks, which are that people should subscribe, share the show with other stargazers you know, and send us your show ideas, observations, and questions to actualastronomy@gmail.com.
Thank you, everyone, for listening, and we hope you enjoyed the show. If you are interested in more information, would like to contact us, or if you would like to support the podcast, check out our website, actualastronomy.com.